Definitely.
We move on. We
Definitely.
move on to the core main event now, and it is a battle of Hawaii versus Australia and a rematch from UFC 245. Somebody mentioned this, that how many of these fights on this card have connections to 245, because Kamaru Usman is main eventing, as he did at 245. Holloway and Volkanovski on the card as well as the core main, as it was then. We've also
Yeah.
got Piotr Jan and Jose Aldo, who were also on the undercard of 245. So it's just strange, isn't it, that 6 months later, 7 months later, we're just seeing this sort of history repeating itself.
Yeah.
I just think it's perfect timing, really. It must have been perfect timing for all the fighters, I guess. It's just an MMA conspiracy.
We love plenty of them.
And you've got and you've got connections with Aldo, Max Holloway, things like that as well. Obviously fought previously twice and things like that. That'd be interesting.
Certainly will do.
If only Nunes was on
Well-
this card, then it would be
But we've got a
perfect.
girl called Amanda.
Oh yeah, there we
There
go.
you go. And if we go back to December with Alex Volkanovski and Max Holloway in their first fight, I mean, there was a lot of people out there that thought Max Holloway, he's the dominant featherweight champion, he's going to be making easy work of this fight, and then we can maybe look at Max maybe going up in weight and seeing what he could do at lightweight to try and become a double champ. Then Alex Volkanovski comes along. And I was actually one of the few people out there that thought this guy is going to be a stylistic nightmare for Max. And before you know it, we have Max Holloway losing his belt, Volkanovski becoming the champion. Do you agree with the idea of this fight being a rematch? And I don't say that as a disrespect to Max Holloway. I think Max was a fantastic champion, and he does deserve the chance to get his belt back considering how good he was as the champion. I just think about how good featherweight is right now. I look at people like Korean Zombie, Yair Rodriguez, Zabit, and given the choice between a Holloway rematch and one of those three fighting Volkanovski, personally I would have gone with one of those three.
I'm going to disagree purely.
I was gonna disagree.
I'm going to disagree purely because I think what Max has done for the division, like you said, I think that he deserves. I think the first fight was the correct decision, but it wasn't as clear cut as the scorecards give it, in my opinion. And I think Max is a great one. I think Max is shown throughout his career, especially since the Conor loss, is how adaptable he is. He's another one who's improved massively over the years, and I want to see, because he's another one. He'll have gone back, he'll have reset, he'll have watched that tape. I want to see what he's done to see Max 2.0, and I think he's done everything the UFC asked him to as well. He went up in weight, he fought. You know what I mean? I mean, it didn't go his way against Poirier, but obviously look at Poirier. You know what I mean? You can't knock him for that, and I think I honestly do think he deserves a rematch. And I want to see how. I think if for Volkanovski as well, if he beats him 2 in a row, his stock rises massively.
It
you know what I mean?
legitimises Alex Volkanovski. It shows the first fight wasn't a fluke. This guy is a real deal when it comes to this division.
Especially if he wins by knockout, like what he's claiming that he's going to do. That'd be definitely huge for Volkanovski if he could put away Holloway, because has Holloway even been finished?
He got submitted by
been...
Dustin Poirier, which was his UFC debut.
Yeah, in his debut.
The inverted twisted triangle, was that, or something like
Inverted
that?
triangle, yeah. But he's never
Yeah, but apart from
never
that,
been stopped with strikes.
Yeah, that's it.
Oh. But I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, if you look at the two people that Conor beat early on in his career, was Poirier and Holloway. How much Holloway? Because obviously, Poirier is another story. But if you look at how Holloway has improved from that fight, and again, he's someone who's been in the UFC for such a long time. I mean, he was a kid when he joined the UFC, and he's matured massively since then. So no, I am a Holloway fan, I have to admit. I mean, I do like Volkanovski, and his game plan for the first fight was flawless, and he executed it perfectly. But I do want to see what Max.
And I think that's the thing that a lot of people were surprised by with Volkanovski. I mean, I predicted him to win the first fight, but I thought he was going to be doing it using his wrestling, taking down Max, and instead, obviously him and Eugene Behrman must have seen something in terms of Max and how he switches stances, and they were just going at that leg over and over again, and Max's movement was non-existent come those final few rounds because of the work that Volkanovski was doing on it. So you've got to think that side of Volkanovski's game can't work this time around because Max is going to be making the adjustments. But if Max is preparing for these leg kicks, maybe Volkanovski is going to be applying a more striking-based game. And we saw against Chad Mendes, he can find success with that. Maybe he is going to be using his wrestling a little bit more.
Yeah, he's got... I mean, obviously, to outstrike Max Holloway is no mean feat at all because he's a fantastic striker. But if he's got Max thinking about the leg kicks, then his wrestling hasn't even thought about his wrestling. Obviously, if he sets up his wrestling with his hands, then he's got multiple ways to win, hasn't he? I mean, I can't. Obviously, no one's going to pick Max Holloway to out wrestle Volkanovski, are we? So that's Max is kind of like a war of attrition kind of guy where he pitter patters away and does get the finish after multiple shots landed. He's not a one-punch knockout artist or anything like that. He kind of just wears you down, almost like a Nate Diaz kind of fighter, where he will just wear you down. So yeah, I think Volkanovski, while I'm a Max Holloway fan, has got more than one way to win this fight because he's got his wrestling, he's got his strike, and he's showed he can outstrike. Again, we talk calf kick, isn't it? It's the calf kick, man. If you can take someone's legs out, it's become so difficult. If you land maybe 5 to 6 in the first couple of rounds, like you said, by the 5th round, and someone like Max Holloway is so reliant on switching its movement, it's evident what happened.
That being said, with Volkanovski though, when we look at the first Holloway fight, I watched the replay on YouTube, he wasn't all that effective with the grappling. There was a couple of times when he did try and get the clinch, he tried to shoot him for takedowns, but Max's sprawl, Max's takedown defense is on point.
Yeah, that's what makes me pretty angry that we never got that Khabib fight. That was like April Fool's, like 2018.
Because he was going to fight
awesome.
he was going to fight Khabib on 223, wasn't it? And then obviously he had the issues with the weight cut and all the dolly stuff as well.
Yeah, that would have been perfect.
In terms of Max Holloway himself, obviously we focus on his striking. What other attributes is Max going to be utilising to try and get himself victory in this fight? Is there anything about Volkanovski that he can maybe look to try and weaken in the same way that Volkanovski did in the first fight?
Maybe just try and avoid those leg kicks. Maybe try and check him if he gets in. If he tries to check any of those leg kicks, he could definitely try and deflect some of that damage. Because Volkanovski was chipping away hard on those in the first fight.
I think one of the things I do hope to see is that Max has maybe tried to do something to try and build on his power, because one of the things I've seen with Volkanovski, especially with the Chad Mendes fight, that was for me the toughest test that Volkanovski faced in his career, and Mendes had the power. I think he dropped him in that fight in the second round, and then Volkanovski came back to get the knockout himself. So if Max has been working on building some more bulk, building a bit more power, maybe that's a trait that he can try and exploit, but that comes at the expense of Max's movement, which has always been his big forte.
Yeah, he's so loose, isn't he, with his striking and things like that. So, but I don't know if he you don't have to put on much weight to carry a bit more power, do you? To be fair, so yeah, that could be something.
Yeah, maybe if he goes with like the Gaethje approach and he tries to reduce his output, and he tries to point fight with like power on the end of his punches instead of just pit pattern, as you said, breaking down his opponents. Maybe if he puts more power into those shots and maybe doesn't throw them nearly as often.
And I think
we could maybe see a completely different fighter.
And I think that was something he utilised a lot against Frankie Edgar. Because Edgar was quite similar to Volkanovski in being quite a stocky wrestler that was going to try and go for the takedowns. And Max wasn't his gung-ho self in that fight. He played it very safe, very composed. Maybe not the most entertaining Max Holloway fight, but very effective. Yes, Volkanovski is a hell of a lot tougher than Frankie Edgar is, and a hell of a lot stronger. But it was effective in that fight, and I think maybe that's another path for victory that Max Holloway can try and utilise.
Yeah, and that was right after the Poirier loss, so he definitely took something from that loss and definitely learned from that when he came out with that approach. So we'll probably see the same thing here.
Is anybody maybe a bit concerned about Max Holloway's mileage? Because he's 28 years old, but he's been fighting in the UFC for about 8 or 9 years, and he has had some absolute wars during that time. And just the one fear I sometimes have with Max Holloway is, we've seen this with so many people, like him and Barrow's the one that comes to my mind, is you have so many fights in such a short space of time, you start feeling the effects of them a lot earlier than what other people might do.
Just feel burnt out. You just burn yourself out, don't you? Yeah, potentially. He's been in some big fights as well. Considering he's such a young man, he's been in some really, really big fights for his age as well. I mean, he just held that division for, I don't know how long he was champion for, but it was quite.
I think since 2016. I'm
yeah.
trying to think.
Yeah, 2017 UFC.
Right.
Yeah, UFC 212. He beat Jose Aldo in Brazil.
Yeah, which is a
okay.
massive achievement.
I think again it's a really compelling fight because this is your quintessential striker versus grappler matchup, and I think we can see that as well when we look at the polls. The polls for this one, you got Volkanovski 54%, Max Holloway 46%. So again, another very close fight. People on the internet can't really call it between these two, but we're going to have to.
I'm going to let Clay answer this one first because I've been first all the way, so I'm going to let Clay go first.
This one's pretty tough. The odds on this are pretty close. Like, I think it's only like negative 240 for Volkanovski. Like, it's nothing too crazy, like the He-Boss fight or anything like that. But yeah, it's going to be pretty interesting to see. We might see a Holloway 2.0. That's what I'm hoping to see. We see a evolved Holloway. We see him employ some new tricks, maybe some new techniques in his power and his movement. Probably is man, it's tough to pick. I'm gonna go with Volkanovski decision.
I'm going to go the same way. I think we're going to see a much more improved Max Holloway, and we're going to see him iron out those flaws from the first fight. But something tells me that Volkanovski's holding something back. Because if Eugene Bareman was smart enough to see the switching of stances from the first fight, there's something else he's going to see as well that's going to give Volkanovski another opportunity to try and exploit. I mean, City Kickboxing have been knocking it out the park recently, and I'm going to go with Volkanovski again. But I do think it's going to be a lot closer than the first fight.
So, for me, this is a really tough one because I'm probably inclined to agree with you both, but I'm not going to root against Max because I like Max. He's one of my favourite fighters. So I'm going to go Max Holloway by unanimous decision, but I would not at all be surprised if I'm more than likely going to be wrong. But my heart says Max. I'd like Max to win. My heart says Max.